Wow, that was really beautiful. Wow.
Very good. Yeah, you saw Dave there in the picture.
Yeah, didn't Dave just pass?
He did.
I'm really sorry about that. You must have been very good friends, and I was just
Big time.
actually looking that up. I'm sorry. I'm really sorry to hear that.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's really bad. Sorry, I'm just arranging a few things, but yeah, it was pretty shocking too. It wasn't expected at all.
No.
And those of us who knew Dave for years or over the years, you know, it's pretty upsetting, and especially for you. How long were you guys playing in the band together?
Well, I played with him for 30 years, probably.
Yeah.
Goes way back to all sorts of, through many different things.
Yeah.
Great guy, marvelous player.
Yeah.
Great presence, always positive.
Yeah.
he was a real healthy guy too, as far as he
I
lived at the
know.
beach to surf every day. I mean,
I know. He's one of those surfer guys.
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, that is really, and yeah, I heard about his passing through a friend of mine who was connected with a woman that I can't quite remember. He was kind of newly seeing. Oh, it was Roger's widow.
Madeline
Yeah,
Vigari, singer.
yeah,
Oh, okay. I didn't know that.
yeah. I think they were it was like a kind of a beginning.
Yeah, well, Roger passed too. I was there at his
Yeah.
reception too.
What a great guy he was. I knew
Yeah.
him for years too. I met him when I was really young, and he was real supportive. He was really
Yes.
supportive guy
Yeah.
and a great player.
Yeah. Yeah. A lot of stories too.
Yeah.
But I always loved playing with him because he's such a good arranger and composer that, when he would play, it would come out as if it was arrangement, some of the stuff. That's just the way
Yeah.
he thought. It was just
Yeah,
made sense, right off the bat. Yeah, he was great.
yeah. Yeah, that's really nice. Yesterday I did that gig, and it was Gary Fukushima on piano, John Leftwich on bass, Kendall Kay on drums, Chuck Manning on tenor, Steve Hofstetter on trumpet, and Kim Richmond on alto. And so talk about arrangers and stuff.
Yeah, right.
I was like, yeah, just everything.
Steve and Kim.
Oh God, man. And Steve, his ballads, man, were his tone and perfect ideas. It just blew me away. It was so beautiful. Well, all of them. It was just, that's why I had such a good time yesterday. It was like, oh my God, this feels so good. Anywhere I turn, they're with me. It's great.
Well, and it's great we can appreciate it, that we've spent our lives. So when you hear things on those level, that we really get it.
Yeah.
And I'm really glad that I do. It absolutely enriches my life.
Yeah, yeah. We were talking about playing with Bob Shepard, and yeah, I mean, he's a great example. He's really there for you, and he's doing his very creative best for any situation, and it makes it enjoyable, and I don't know how to say it. It's like kind of going forth. You're able and interested in moving forward with a player like that playing with you.
Well, my wife's a musician. She's a bassoonist and contrabassoonist. And she played in the Israel Philharmonic in the 80s. And she worked with Leonard Bernstein. And she said the thing was great about Bernstein, that he would invite the orchestra with him. He wouldn't say, what can I do to get this across better, rather than being a tyrannical guy.
Yeah.
And she said it just made them play so much better of what he did to bring it in. Is what she loved about him as a conductor.
Boy, that's really nice. I know a conductor like that too, Larry Livingston. I don't know if you know him.
I don't think so.
You might know him. He's conductor worldwide known, and he also was the dean for USC, and a kind of I'd say an improvisational pianist, and I mean really wonderful. But he's a very special man. He has really interesting, beautiful, like human connecting points of view, and he also does things like that. He knows everybody's name, no matter what orchestra he's visiting. He knows everybody's name, so he doesn't say third violin, you blah blah blah. He'll say Nancy, whatever.
Well, I'm sure you've been a band leader for most of your life, probably, and I know I have. Yeah. And there's as you go, there's different ways to lead. You can lead by intimidation and fear and all this stuff, or you can do it a different way. I've always taken the other way of so glad you're here. I used to do here's an example of that. On gigs you never know what you're getting into. So I used to do this stuff for Gene Roddenberry, Star Trek creator.
Yeah.
And had a jazz band up there. First gig, all of a sudden, here he comes, after the first tune or something. Okay, turn it down, watch out, don't eat the shrimp, whatever it is. And he says, God, you sound great. help yourselves to anything. We're so glad to have you here. See you later. Which is how it should be,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
a lot of times it is, but every once in a while it is. Those are the people you want to play with, that you want to work with, and all that stuff.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, so true. My old boyfriend was I can say this because we all said it at the funeral, but Harold Bennett, he was a flute player, sax player and flute player, really good. But he was from Houston, and probably because of how he came up, because, like as a young player, he would go sit in and he'd call a song in B flat and the guys would go B. You know what I mean? Like
blues and B. That's on a
it's
Benny
like,
Goodman record.
why do you want to screw somebody up like that? So
To get into the club, I guess.
whatever. But he also kind of carried that forth in his bands. He was the other. He wasn't like the kind of, come on, let's all, he would like direct people and stuff. And I always used to say, what are you doing? Like, why have that weird attitude? People, they don't want to play with that kind of attitude always coming, but anyway, whatever. I mean,
there's just different ways of approaching that stuff, but
yeah,
I root for the other side on that stuff.
me too. So, so I know you told me this before, but I'm going to start here. Where are you from?
Los Angeles, California. Actually, I was born in Culver City.
Really?
We moved when I was 2 to West LA, right around the Mormon temple.
Oh, wow.
In West LA. That's where I grew up. Yeah. So I'm a native, so I've seen, a lot of changes. And I've got good long-term memory. What I did 2 seconds ago, I don't know. But, man, back to the 50s, I remember.
I used to notice that you didn't bump into a lot of Angelinos, original Angelinos. My husband is one, actually. But
especially in our biz, usually people come here to do stuff. But,
yeah.
I'm a native.
So, and you must have started playing guitar like when you were very young.
8.
8.
Yep.
Wow. Okay. I mean, singing is easy to start when you're like, just out of the womb, but guitar, that's a little.
I could fill it in. I was really into sports when I was a kid, and particularly baseball. And 58 is when the Dodgers moved to LA. And the Giants too. So it must have been tough in New York because both teams moved out to LA. And LA was not exactly a hick town, but it wasn't a major place at that time. 58 is also when the Music Center got built and all that. So there's a lot going on in LA at that time as being a major place. Well, it's also when transistor radios came in and all that. My dad got me a clock radio. So by my bed, I'd listen to the Dodger games. Now, it happened to be Vin Scully, who was the best announcer ever. That's how I'd go to bed. I was totally into baseball. Now, when the baseball season was over, I still had the radio. So I have an older sister too, and she says, I used to listen to this station, KFWB, which was Bill Balance show. And it's just they'd gone from like Make Believe Ballroom, which was a big band station basically, to rock and roll. It was one of the first when that was just kind of hitting. Yeah, and it caught me. I remember it was like La Bamba and Donna. All those types of songs were on, and I liked it. And it was also a time of instrumental rock and roll songs. So you'd have Duane Eddy, you'd have the Ventures and stuff like that, and that's what got me. I went into a record store. I looked up on the wall. They had all these albums up there, and I saw Twangy Guitar Will Travel. It's this red. I still have the album, and Duane Eddy's on there with a cool Gretsch guitar and just looking really cool. And I said, I want to do that. My mom being supportive of the arts and all that, I said, okay. And so she got me lessons. So I started with some lessons, and that's when I started.
When do you remember really falling in love with the guitar itself?
I always liked it, but I discovered the power of it. I remember one day I had the sheet music to my mother's favorite song, Fascination. And one day I did something and she was really pissed off and she was going to get me or something like this. I ran in my room, I grabbed my guitar and I played the song. And she just melted. She couldn't, you know, she couldn't be bad. I said, there's something to this music stuff, man. It's powerful. And so, but
I love that story.
no, but I just took to the challenge, you know, how do you figure things out? The real change, I really fell in love with it, I think, because I stopped after lessons. Because, you know, his lessons was old, you know, old guys telling me I wanted to play rock and roll. That's why I got
yeah.
And, you know, I was learning to read. It was Mel Bay Volume 1. And,
Mel Bay.
And if I wanted anything, they'd have to write it out for me, like the Green Leaves of Summer or something like that. But no rock and roll stuff. So I was still in sports, different things. So I kind of put it down. And my sister had a friend come over. I still had a guitar around the house. He picked it up and he started playing. And I said, well, who showed you that? Who do you take lessons from? He said, oh, I just kind of listen to records and stuff and figure things out. Big bang moment for me. Is that really? I started dropping the needle on records 8 hours a day for years and years and years and years. And that's how I, you know, really did. I had the ear for that and the patience, the concentration to be able to drop it over and over to figure things out. And I eventually went back and studied composition and stuff many, many years later. But that was basically it, that you can figure out stuff that you want to do without somebody showing to it, you know, if there's music you want to learn that way.
Yeah.
And I just loved it, you know, and then the Beatles came in and all that. So I was playing before the Beatles, though. So I was in a good position to be playing guitar during that time because I already played. So, you know, and, you know, I was totally in all of, you know, guitar was it. It was the instrument then. You know, I saw Hendrix and Clapton and Beck and all those people back then. And that's what I was doing. I was smashing guitars under strobe lights and long hair and funny clothes. And actually I was on the road when I was 16, 17. You know, I was still in high school, but I'd go out on the weekends sometime. It's different. It was great fun. But I kind of got a lot of that. I mean, it's a real adolescent dream, you know, but what's great about music is that if you're interested in it, you will never kind of get as good as you want to get in any particular thing. You can get good and you can get on the way to that way. It's that journey. But you can always learn something. And if you get into different types of music, which I've done consistently over the years, that's the biggest joy that I get out of it. That journey of keep learning through your whole life, something that you've done since you're 8 years old. I mean, you know, you should be pretty good at it if you've been doing it for 60 years.
Yeah, you should be. I know. Yeah.
It held my interest, you know.
Yeah. I have a friend on Roland Ascarons who he's a guitar player, but he hasn't played professionally for a long time. But I forget how many guitars he has. 12, Roland? I forget. 9, 12?
Guitars are cool. They're dangerous.
You know, once a guitar player, always a guitar player. But he said that's how he started too, dropping the needle over and over. And
well, you'd use, you know, and if you had a scratch, you'd put a dime on the needle, or sometimes you'd a nickel.
Right, I forgot about that. My husband is a record collector. We have, you know, a lot of records. Yeah. And he's mostly into rock and blues. So, and he's got one of those minds that remembers like, yeah, that's a black label with, you know, all that stuff. And he also collects 45s. So, yeah, so I've heard, I've heard a lot about that. And 13, thanks, Roland, 13 guitars. And, but yeah, Roland, I got a guitar player on for you today, Roland.
No, guitar. I remember there was a point where the keyboard players were getting, you know, keyboards that you could strap on and stuff and trying to look like guitars. And people say, oh, guitars are done with and stuff. It isn't. Guitars are just really cool. And looking at playing and just physically, it's fun too, you know?
Yeah. But, no, I even played guitar when I was young. I think it might have been my first instrument. Then I went to flute. I actually wanted to play violin, which I'm convinced I played in another lifetime. But my mother said, you have the perfect lips for flute. So I ended up, I mean, I can still play. And I took a few lessons this year, actually. But I have things along the vocal and producing line that just took my attention, you know? But I wanted to ask you, I know you teach as well. How do you think that, sorry, let me mute myself for 1 second.
Yeah. Well, I'll say one other thing that, you were saying how when you're young, you can sing. I mean, I could even too, before my voice changed, I was in Glee Club. But the thing that was great about when I started was all this instrumental music, is that I could play beyond my years as far as playing guitar. But the music I liked was like soul music too. But so, I want to sing like James Brown or Bobby Blue Bland. I sounded like a 9-year-old kid or a 10-year-old kid.
Yeah.
It just doesn't work. So being
Yeah.
able to do stuff that was instrumental was a good timing to get into music, because you didn't have to sing. And that's surf, and then surf music came in, which was mainly instrumental, except for the Beach Boys. Yeah.
That's a good point. That's a good point. I'd have to think about why I went to singing. I mean, my dad played a certain records, which included Ella and all the singers, but I also had two older sisters, twins, who sang, and one played piano, and we just, we came up and we sang on gigs that my father had, especially for family stuff. And I was always, the cute, oh, look at Cathy, that kind of thing. So I think, and even hanging out with the musicians in my dad's rehearsals, I was like 5 and musicians were kind of, flirting with me because, I was 5 and cute. And I really think that's part of what attracted me, Yeah. Not only that, but I mean, the feel of what was going on, everybody was loose and having fun. Then there was the music. And I think all of that really attracted me, because as I grew up, things like, I always tell this story about the Modern Jazz Quartet. I saw them. They were like the first group that I chose to buy tickets to go see, And one thing that really got to me was their presence and the feeling that they had inside of them, somehow translated to me. And I was really drawn by that. It just felt like they respected each other. They respected the music, the audience, that was really attractive,
Yeah.
I meant to ask you regarding teaching, like how the fact that you came up without, you studied a little, then you didn't study for a long time, and then you went back to it. How does that all fit into your teaching?
Well, I actually haven't taught in the last year and a half. I didn't do any online teaching, but I've been still writing. I'm writing another book, actually. I've written about 13, 14 music books. So that's, when I was growing up, there weren't any good books out particularly. I mean, there was Mel Bay, which was fine. Actually, I wound up writing a few books. The current one is for Mel Bay. So it's like a full circle thing. So it's really, really cool. They're really a nice company, family company. They're straight ahead. There's no funny business, which I've had with other companies and stuff. So I really like them as a company. Actually, who's got Mel Bay was the, just for guitar stuff, he was the D'Angelico distributor for the country. D'Angelo were the best archtop guitars ever made. And he was in St. Louis, Missouri. And he had tons of them all around. I remember on the copy of the first Mel Bay book, there's a picture of the D'Angelico, which was a great guitar. So that was interesting.
That's something I haven't noticed. It's interesting. Yeah.
But as far as the teaching, so there wasn't a lot of good books. I remember there was something by Highway, a little bit of stuff. I think there was one Ventures book that was somewhat accurate that I could learn something from, but there weren't a lot of good books. So the books I felt fulfilling, and now there's a ton of stuff. But I wrote my first book in 1978, and then like a Django Reinhardt book, and there really wasn't anything available like that in the States, at least at that time. So when you that feeling that I wasn't able to play what I wanted to play affects teaching. Is like, what do you want to play? What's your passion? Because you know that they're not going to practice unless it's something they want, the end result that they really want to do it. If you stick them doing stuff they don't want, chances are they might not be into it. So I am sensitive to that. I really do put myself in how did I learn?
Yeah.
And I can step right back in, how did I learn to bend strings when I was playing blues? I spent a lot of time on it. So you can hopefully streamline some of the processes and save people some time by directing them to things and stuff like that. But you have to put the time in. But if you ask me, that would be mainly it, that you want people to do things that they're excited about doing. Even if you do simplified or whatever, you just have to be inspired by it, I think. I don't know what else you're interested in that area.
We'll find out in the next hour or so. Actually, let's go hear something. Let's see. So I have Xander's Dream. Why don't you tell us about the Snap Daddies, though? Like, how long has that been going? Is that your creation?
Yes. Well, I actually started this way. I actually gave Ry Cooter a couple of guitar lessons.
Oh, really?
Which sounds weird. His son was at Cal Arts, and he was doing a master's recital, and he wanted Ry to accompany him on a couple of standards. I remember one of them was Spring Can Really Hang You Up the Most. And he said, I haven't played in standard tuning in 12 years. So, I got turned on to it, and I got together with him, wrote out some charts and showed him how to play those tunes. Well, then he recommended me to Jim Keltner to do a Django-esque commercial for this company, because Jim was doing some commercials at that time. And I put together a group, and it was so much fun. I said, well, I like this group, because it had woodwinds, it had, the violin had Sid. I think Dave was on it too, And I said, I want to, I'll put a group together because I like it. And I started writing for it, and that's how it came to be. It's sprung out of that. Yeah. And that lasted for a while. We made that CD, and then it carried over into I formed Dream Street, which was with Sid's wife, Sid Page's wife, Bobby Page, who was the vocalist, and I wrote songs and arrangements, and I expanded the group, from what it was to adding cello, bassoon, different things. And their ongoing Dream Street was about 15 years or something. We played we played Jazz Bakery and Vitello's a bunch. We played Valentine's Day at Vitello's and Christmas show and all that stuff. We actually did a holiday CD, which was fun. Actually, I have one track I gave you. That whole thing of reimagining things that are so familiar in different ways is a fun thing as an arranger. But the whole thing was to be able to, from where I started playing with people, to be able to play with really best people in the world, as far as I'm concerned with. Yeah. Those level of musicians, there's just nothing better to play and write for, and that's just a joy. Really a joy.
We do have an embarrassment of riches here in Los Angeles. That's why
one of the great things.
I don't know if I could ever really move, because.
Well, you'd be someplace and you might have two good bass players. Yeah. And if they're not available, you're kind of in trouble. But here you got 40, or more.
Okay, let's listen to Dream Street. And what struck me as I was listening to you, I mean, we've certainly known each other's names, but after all these years, we have not really come across each other in the music circles, like playing together or being at each other's gigs. And it's so.
Actually, I did go to a couple of your gigs.
You went to a Ted Green gig. I know you did.
But it wasn't. What's the place in the Valley used to have them?
Which one?
Sportsman's Lodge.
I know. Yeah. The
Sportsman's Lodge. Yeah. Yeah.
You jammed.
The Sportsman's Lodge was the first place I ever got drunk. It was my cousin's wedding. I think I was 13. It was an open bar. I remember the Sportsman's Lodge. But you've always been a creator that way of having a scene that way, which is really beneficial to musicians, singers, and all that, and which I think is great.
Yeah, but it's.
Did you remember a group called Dr. Jazz in the '80s? That played in Venice. That was my group. Oh. And I think I might have come across you back then. Yeah. But there's so many different circles of people. Also, I mean, I play a lot of different music, so there's people.
Did Dr. Jazz have a violinist? Was it?
Yeah, Jimbo. Jimbo and Pam
No,
Tompkins.
I might have even
Still with
auditioned
us.
for
Yeah, I
that.
think so.
And that
We had
was,
a bunch of
I have to tell you about that because that was so long ago, which I really do believe I auditioned for that. And there was a song, I forget what it was, and that was before I really understood that I had to do something with the song besides just copy.
Mhm. Yeah.
And I just copied and I didn't get it. I didn't get the gig. And I thought, oh, okay, that's interesting.
But, yeah, but it was, I was getting into swing music, which was,
Mhm.
different at that time. We're talking the 80s. This was like 10 years before the swing revival that happened or something.
Right, right.
I've been there a few times, behind and ahead of my times that way.
Yeah, and you know what? Now, I mean, it just kind of popped into my mind. We might have actually been on the same interesting casual. I have no idea where it was. It was in this huge outdoor space with kind of different environments, but Jimbo was there, and which didn't happen a lot, for
Yeah.
me. So that might have been also.
Might have been.
Yeah.
But
Well,
yeah, like I said,
anyway,
I've known of you and I've heard
I
you.
know. Well, I've known of you too, and but it's just so interesting. You can live here for 50 years, 40 years,
Yeah.
whatever, and
Yeah, I mean,
maybe
some
come
people know me
across-
the classical world, some know me the roots, blues, swing world,
Yeah.
jazz world, swing, and they're all little pockets that are full of people, and sometimes they don't interact with each other, and sometimes they do.
Yeah.
I mean, we know tons of people in common.
Yes, we do. Well, I'm going to go here and share my screen.
There once was a time when you could make me smile with hardly trying. Those were the best of times. Our words came out in rhymes like little valentines of love. We met and took the chance that we had finally found a great romance. I didn't worry then, I didn't have to then. I was an amateur in love. But now I say to you, dear, unrehearsed, you're the fountain that quenched my thirst. I drink to you eternally, to us, to life, to love. I've loved you all along. So much went right, not wrong. Learning the complicated ploys of love. And now these cherished days are full of love and grace. I'm still amazed. We both did something right to make it to this night. Two smiling connoisseurs of love. And so I say to you, dear, from my heart, no one else could have played your part. We've played so well for so long now. To us, to life, to love.
Beautiful.
So Dream Street was actually, a seven-piece group.
Yeah.
All the songs I like a song that you can play it with one instrument and a voice. That's a song, in a way. And it should work that way. And we used to always like to include at least one duet that way, that started that way without everybody else. That was one of them.
Yeah. Beautiful. Yeah. Allergies. So when did you start your love affair with Django?
Well, I went to Cal Arts, California Institute of the Arts, first year it opened, 1970,
Oh,
1971.
wow.
So I was actually out at Villa Cabrini Girls' School in Burbank until the earthquake happened, and then music school moved out to Valencia, one moved to an aircraft hangar. It was kind of crazy time. But the dean of the music school was Mel Powell. Mel Powell was Benny Goodman's 16-year-old boy genius arranger piano player in the 30s, 40s, actually the 40s. And during World War II, he was over in England with Glenn Miller's band. And there was a record in the Cal Arts Music Library, Django Reinhardt and the American All-Stars. And it was, Mel Powell. That's why it was that was in the library. Mel had become a classical composer and all that, won a Pulitzer Prize for composition and things. But, and I heard some Django and I said, God, that's the stuff, I'm hearing. I wish I could play like that.
Yeah.
And so I got exposed to it then. That was like about 1970. And then I was in a group, the Mystic Knights of the Oingo Boingo.
Oh.
And the Mystic Knights did everything but popular music. We do swing music, atmosphere, just weird music and all this stuff.
Is this the same Oingo Boingo that just
It
went
was
on?
pre that. In other words, this was with Danny Elfman, but his brother Rick was really the leader, his older brother. And Danny was there. Danny and I were like co-music directors for a while of this.
Uh-huh.
And so Rick gives me this tape, reel-to-reel tape, and says, "Here, learn this." And it was Django. It was Django doing like "After You're Gone" or something like that. So I had to learn it. And we did. And Danny could actually play violin. He would do Pelly's solo and stuff like that. And then we had this Club Oingo Boingo section of our show, and we do stuff like that, Duke Ellington stuff, Black and Tan, fantasy, things like that. And that's where I got into it. And then I just liked it, really a lot. I just got Django, and I took to it, and I could hear it, and I could kind of figure it out. Then I started figuring out a lot of solos and things. And the way I've always done the books that I've done is, if I'm interested in something, I'm doing something like putting a lot into transcribing things, well, maybe I can make a book out of it. So I did. Then I was into Charlie Christian, so I did a Charlie Christian book. I've done 2 actually on both of them. Because Mel Bay actually contacted me and say, "Well, I know you did books on Django and Charlie Christian. We want one too, but you can do it more elaborate." So I did. But so over the years, I've just gone in and out of that gypsy jazz thing. At this point, not that much, because I play nylon string, and that's what my main instrument is at this point. And I've got all sorts of guitars too, electrics and acoustic steel strings. But I ruin my nails on those, especially on the Django stuff when you're doing all that fast picking. And and also it's very technical sometimes, to do that with the right hand of the lines. But I keep, every time I get back into it, I'm amazed, it was, and overcoming, he has overcoming the handicap with 2 fingers. And I still got to go see Borelli Legren was here last year. And I went.
I don't know who that is.
He was the 13-year-old kid. I mean, not 13, 9-year-old kid who was like the new coming of Django. I got an album of him when he was about 12 or something. The guitar is bigger than he is. And he was the new coming of Django. He was a gypsy from over there. They asked, how do those guys get so good? Well, they play since the age of 5. They have people show them. They don't go to school or whatever, and they play 12 hours a day. How do the beboppers do it? They play 8 hours a day, then they go to jam sessions and play. I mean, they really played a lot. And but he was just brilliant. Then he got, Steve Kahn produced more of a contemporary album. Jock, everybody knew about him. But he's. I think we talked about Julian Lodge. Other than that, he's probably the most amazing guitar player on the planet.
Yeah.
he can do anything that he can conceive of, and he conceives of really interesting things. My favorite parts of him is he'll do these fantasias as an intro to a song. It might be a swing song, but these things he does just goes out and in and out, and it's just beautiful, So he's an amazing player. Never heard him. Yeah.
Spell his name. I'm going to write it in here.
Birelli is Bireli or LLI, and
Wait a minute. Birelli or one L?
Yeah, actually, I'm going to look it up for you and make it easier. But he's definitely worth it. The other one like that is Stocello Rosenberg. He's the
another interesting name.
Yeah, well, those are the let's see, Birelli. Maybe it's one. He's another just incredible gypsy guitar player of the. It's amazing because I've seen it really get popular. I can't even find it here. Somebody probably can write in and tell us. Birelli. Should go get his own. See if this does it. Oh, there it is. It's Bireli, and his last name is Lagrene. Birelli Legrand. I don't know if that's how you pronounce it, but yeah, those two. If you want to get some great gypsy
and
jazz.
the other guy,
and also John Jorgensen, who's the American guy. He's an amazing player. Do you know John at all? He's playing with Elton John now on his tour, playing guitar. He was in a group called the Helicasters. 3 Telecaster guys playing wild, twangy Telecaster stuff. But John, he was a bassoonist. He was a saxophonist. He was good on those. He's a great clarinet player, and he's probably the best American gypsy jazz guitar player too. He was in the Desert Rose Band doing country music.
Oh wow!
Incredibly, he played at Disneyland for about 10, 12 years, and they had a bluegrass band and a Django type band that used to go around. That's how he got it. And then he got launched into the world and has done great stuff. Really a good guy too.
A bunch of people do that. Judy Carmichael, who's one of the greatest,
she's great.
stride players. She did that too for years. Disneyland.
Well, I think Howard Alden played banjo at Shakey's, to start out. What can you say?
Hey,
I'll start somewhere.
Yeah, exactly. Well, who is the second guy you said with a Jewish last name?
Stocello.
Stocello.
Rosenberg.
What is C like? Is it CI or CH or?
You mean the Stocello?
Yeah.
I'll look it up.
Stocello Rosenberg. That's funny.
Yeah. Well, Reinhardt,
Yeah.
I don't know how all that stuff got there. It's Stocello, Stochelo, and then just Rosenberg. Amazing chops and ideas. The thing I object, I don't know if it's but that turns me off sometimes, that a lot of, I think why the gypsy jazz appeals to shredding metal people and bluegrass things is kind of the energy of it and everything, and in the athleticism of it in a way, which is not what I like. Django Reinhardt, even though he could do some technical things that were just amazing, he didn't do it all the time.
Yeah.
He would use it when musically it would fit, and he had great melodic ideas and could play his tunes too. So I feel that a lot of stuff is it's like too athleticism of just running these incredible arpeggios and stuff, everything, but I don't get the soul or the music to some people, but I think that's what some people picked up on.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow. Yeah, that's a lot of information. And it's interesting to me, truthfully, I'm not a huge fan of Django's, but when I hear other people play his music, I like it better. I don't know why. Maybe I might
not have heard the songs that are cool. If you want, I can send you a few tunes I'd recommend.
So the songs might be actually what it is. Yeah, I see. Yeah, it's interesting.
But then, and Grappelli was incredible too. I mean, and I did see him. I saw him the first time he played in LA. Django came over here to play with Duke Ellington, and I think in '46. It was kind of a disaster. It didn't work out. Yeah. And
What, in what way, do you know?
well, he was really surprised at the racism, and that the people he idolized were not treated and respected over here. Also, he didn't have a guitar. He thought, Gibson would just rush out and give it. So, he had to borrow a guitar and stuff like this, and he used to his. And, he didn't show up to some stuff too. He was, he'd go fishing or play billiards, and, Kelly'd have to go out and find him to get him to the gig. He was a very free spirit of the moment, He was illiterate. He didn't write, so. Anyway, it's all interesting stuff to me, and I've gone deep into it and out of it. But yeah, I know a few people who it doesn't speak to. I know some other guitar player friends who are like more, well, that kind of, there's Django, and then there's Charlie Christian. All the guys that came out of Charlie Christian
is pretty impressive. Wow.
Well, that's where the Jim Halls and the Wes Montgomerys and Tal Farlow, Barney Kessel, that's where they came out of. So if that's what you're interested in, you're going to be a lot more that way than I also like the acoustic sound, that acoustic sound, the string sound, of that, because I've played with, there's not a lot of them, but I've played with all the great violinists who played jazz in LA. And Sid was incredible. Sid was the violinist of Dan Hicks and the Hot Licks. Yeah. And I saw them at the Troubadour when I was a teenager, and they were the first, funky swing band that I could relate to, because they looked like, us, and stuff. But they played great, and and the humor, Dan, and I just love that group. And I had no idea that. I mean, I played with Sid for 15 years, 20 years, whatever it is, and he's just a great musician.
Yeah. So you said you were talking first about Borelli. I just wanted to ask you, how old is Borelli now?
He's probably in his, I don't know, 40s, 50s.
Okay.
Maybe 40s.
Yeah.
50s. I don't know. Oh my! I'm older than I think. So he might be around in his 50s. Yeah.
Yeah, I was just
He
curious.
used to be this little thing, and now he's filled out. He's a big guy now.
Interesting. Oh, now I'm going to have to go listen to some more gypsy jazz.
It's interesting. That's a whole thing now. It didn't used to be. I mean, there's hot clubs in many cities throughout the.
Yeah, I know some people in the UK who.
Oh yeah, they're big there.
Yeah. And when I was, let's see, I was in Yugoslavia on a gig during the war.
Ooh.
Because of course I always have to do anything that comes up, So, and at that time I was at this gig, and then they got me out of Yugoslavia, which was in the war, and I went to it's the name of a city that's separated by the river there, and it's Belgrade. No, not Belgrade. Belgrade's Yugoslavia. It's two names that a lot of times sounds, it's as if they come together, and that's the name of the town, but actually they're separated. Anyway, very close to Yugoslavia, right next to it. And one night I went to hear the jazz group, and I met all these gypsy players, and I had no idea, because I just had never come across it, that the gypsies there were basically like blacks in America. They were kind of on the outskirts, and they extremely creative, and ethnically, like community and ethnic, very strong. And it was very interesting education about that.
Yeah. There's that movie Lachodrome, I think, which kind of traces progression of the music from like India all the way through. And at one point they have some gypsy jazz in there too. Yeah. So it's one aspect of things I definitely delved into.
Yeah.
And I love Brazilian music too. So,
I was just going to say, what other genres are you into? So do you know a lot of Brazilian music?
Yes. Well, I started out playing, like, again, rock and roll, then surf music, and the Beatles came in, and with the Beatles was also the blues, English blues invasion, so you get into that too. So all that stuff was happening. And then my favorite stuff was funk and soul music. It was, James Brown, Bobby Blue Bland, Little Milton, all that stuff, and Aretha, Dionne Warwick. That's the music I liked and liked to play as a guitar player. And then after that, where was it? I remember I always kind of liked classical music, but when I'd hear it, I always thought it was untouchable for me.
Yeah.
So I remember being at a friend's house on Malibu Beach, and somebody was visiting her house who was a student at Mannes School of Music in New York. He was out here and he was a guitar major, and it was like, maybe 6 or 7 people just sitting around, and he just played, a bunch of Bach and different things. And I was just, wow, you could just have this guitar, just a guitar, and it sounds totally full and cool and playing for people.
Yeah.
And it really inspired me. But I didn't pick it up then, but I knew it was something I liked. Also, I think I had a Christopher Parkening record. Parkening plays Bach that really, really caught my attention. I love that. And I used to teach at a guitar store called the Eighth Note in West LA. Some interesting guys taught there too. It was a fun community kind of. But the classical guitar teachers knew that I liked classical guitar. So he just said, well, you got the chop, you could do it. You're just intimidated by all the notes on the paper and different stuff like that. So here, play this. So I think he gave me, it was Bach's Prelude in D minor. And I worked it out, slowly, measure by measure, whatever, but I could do it. And I started getting into it. And actually, after I went to Cal Arts, I went back to Northridge and spent a year playing classical guitar. This is after I left the Oingo Boingo, which was not it was not a top flight musical group at the time. It was it was a theater group, surrealistic theater group. So there were some musicians in the group, but there was also some that if you played trumpet in elementary school, we'd use it. Played accordion in 3rd grade, we'd use it. Yeah. So it always came out funky, kind of Salvation Army sounding, but it fit with the visual and the ethos of the group, so it worked. But once you had a piece in, because we had sets, we had costumes, we had all this stuff, you do the same stuff for a couple of years. I was in for a couple of years, and I wanted it to sound better, and I wanted to do more stuff. So, and Danny was really coming on strong in what he was doing, and he wanted to kind of do stuff, and I said, fine, here, I'll do something else. So that's when I did Dr. Jazz, actually, right around that time, I think, because I wanted to write for it, and I wanted to get better musicians, that could actually, play the things you're writing and have them come out that way. Even though boy, it was fun. I mean, I really liked them. We did some interesting. We played the premiere of The Last Tango in Paris, and Mae West was sitting about 6 feet from me. It was fun. It was memorable. Interesting things like that. But so I got a lot out of it. But then that's so. I was into the swing music and learning to write, because with Dr. Jazz, we rehearsed a lot. So I'd write something, I said, oh, that's not right. I'd go back and rewrite it, and then, oh, that sounds better. That's really how I learned to write, because I had kind of like a workshop. So it was very, and we had all sorts of different instruments. At one point we had violin, viola, trombone, woodwinds, clarinet, tenor, vocalists. We did 3-part harmony, we did Boswell Sisters stuff, Roll On You Mississippi, Roll On. Anyway, so it was a great thing to learn to write. And also it was all handwriting. So I've written thousands of charts, pages of music. The one thing I never liked was taping music. They still haven't come up with a really good process.
I love taping music. I'll tape your music the next time you need.
But for 4-part charts for a 7-piece band.
Oh yeah, well that could get old. Yeah.
yeah. Which is the thing I do like about. I mean, I use Sibelius now. I do everything in Sibelius. So. Arrange and everything. Because if you want to change something, it's so much easier to redo it. But I did used to like handwriting music,
Yeah, me too. Love that.
There's something about it. I think Stravinsky did too. I remember he liked to do that.
It just feels you're like very connected physically, the whole thing is really organic. Yeah.
And I think also musicians, I've heard, I mean, my wife's a studio player too and all that. And she said, yeah, when there was now it's all computer generated, but at a certain point it was a switch over from handwritten copyists to computer generated. And they liked the handwritten stuff. There was a vibe or something to it
Huh.
that they like better. But
Yeah.
you know, that's gone.
Yeah.
It's just not efficient.
Yeah.
But
So, let's see.
but then you know, when I used to take 3 buses to get to from West LA to get to Wallack's Music City, which was
I worked
Sunset.
there.
You worked at Wallack's? That was such a great place.
Let's see, what was it? You know, like, and believe it or not, they still had the phone, the switchboard. You know, where you pulled it.
Really?
Plugs.
Yeah, it's like a wow.
I know. I'm
That's a
sure it was the
classic
last
one.
one
It's
on.
like Willie
on the
Tomlin.
planet. Yeah, I'm sure it was the last one on the planet. You know, but anyway.
But you know, I love that place because you know they had the listening booths, so you'd go in there and
Wasn't
listen
that
to record.
great?
But then Fife and Nichols was in the middle of the place, the music store, in the middle of Wallack's Music City, and I used to hang. So the guy took a shine to me. You know, I remember he showed me Corcovado, you know, back then, and that was the first Brazilian thing I ever learned, and I still play it. You know,
Yeah.
and I think that was probably one reason. You know, I like the nylon string sound from that music. I just like Brazilian music. I like everything about it. I also like that I don't hear the English lyrics a lot because I react to it, just the sound and the feeling, which is what I did before I learned to play music. I remember going into a gym and hearing, you know, music, and it was just a sensual experience. Like you'd open the doors and music would be blasting, and you go, you know, it just overwhelmed you. And it's a different way of when you know things. You get a different appreciation and a different way of things when you are a practitioner of it. Like I can hear, you know, chords, harmony. Oh, that was cool, you know, which I wouldn't hear at that point. But it's something to remember, you know, that how you used to react to it before you knew anything that way. And music just, you know, I just love the sound of it that way.
But
And the
Brazilian
Brazilian
music is,
well, it's sensuous. It's got the harmony. It's got the melody. It's got the
harmony,
feel. It's got
like
the
you
rhythm.
said.
It's got all the stuff.
too, like how you said, you know, the harmony is, to me, it's many times surprising. Like,
Oh, yeah.
what was that? And then the whole song is like, it takes me a while to like look at it and listen and realize, okay, this actually is a section and it does repeat. You know, sometimes it's very obscure that it repeats, you know, and so beautiful. And I mean, I don't speak Portuguese. I do a few songs in Portuguese, but it's just,
It's a lovely language. I mean, that
And
and
sing
French,
like-
I like both. Yeah.
oh yeah. But I mean, just as an example, singing Girl from Ipanema,
Yeah.
tall and tan and yeah, or Olha que coisa mais linda. I mean, there's this groove with the language that doesn't occur with English lyrics. So, you know, you have to really work like tall and tan and yeah, you know, it's really hard to get that same groove, right? Yeah.
But that's kind of the last standards in a way that we had. I mean, because, you know, like people who like American, some, you know, 20s, 30s, 40s, a little bit into the 50s.
Yeah.
Then there's not much. Then there's all the Brazilian stuff, which, I mean, the thing that's amazing about it, it's still, you can play any of those and they still sound hip today. You know, what is it? 60 years later, they just sound good. It don't sound dated to me. You know, they sound really great. And yeah, I don't know. So that's one thing I really like and play. And I did, you know, since I do play fingerstyle and I did take up classical guitar, I started playing more nylon string and putting that together. And you know, eventually I got into doing solo stuff. I actually lived with a flute player for a while. It was going to UCLA.
No.
Oh yeah, I know a lot of the flute, you know, syrinx and all the flute repertoire. But you know, we do some gigs, so I learned to do, you know, guitar. There's a lot of good guitar and flute duo stuff.
Yeah, a lot.
I learned to do that stuff, you know, and you know, it all kind of the different things I've done. Like I still try to play with the soul in the feel in a way that I liked about soul music and blues. Even when I'm playing standards or a ballad or whatever, it's still that depth of feeling, which I think is soul.
Yeah.
Not necessarily soul music. It's a certain way you express yourself in music that hits you or doesn't hit you.
Yeah.
And, you know, that's an aspect that I still, you know, try to maintain.
Yeah. Okay, I have to ask this question. How many guitars do you have?
Probably 13. but I'm not a guitar collector.
Yes.
I had different ones for different things. In other words, I got a Telecaster for That was my electric. I've never owned a Stratocaster. I've always been a Telly player.
Oh, yeah.
I've always liked the Telly stuff. A 335, which is the thin body. I've got a great Epiphone Zephyr Regent Deluxe big box guitar from the late 40s. Big blonde jazz guitar. I've got a classical guitar. I've got my gig classical guitar. I've got a really good one. I've got a Requinto, which is the small one that you tune up a fourth.
Oh,
In Mexican music, and the trios, like Trio Los Panchos.
yeah.
So once in a while, I some of the recordings I did were that way. I think that what was it, the Randy Newman song? I think It's Gonna Rain Today. I did on Requinto.
Oh,
But so I like that. And then I've got 3 Martins. The first good guitar I got, like in 1966. I got a Martin D35. I still have that.
oh, wow.
And a couple of others, and I forget what else I have. I've got I've got a Django type guitar. Actually, it's a John Jorgensen model. As a matter of fact.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So, I've had them. I used them. It wasn't like I went out to pawn stores. I wanted 7 Telecasters or 5 Les Pauls. As far as Les Pauls, when I was talking about Walks Music City, to tie that inside Fife and Nichols, you'd go up some stairs, and there was a room, 4 walls, no windows, and that was Milt Owen repair shop, and he was the repair guy for all the studio guys, Oscar Moore, Barney Kessel, Howard Roberts. They all bring their guitars there. So I had him work on stuff when I needed that. And there was a little room that he had for loaner guitars when you gave him the guitar. So this was my surf music days. I went in, got this guitar, went home, played with my band, playing surf music. I said, boy, this guitar really sounds good, but it's really heavy and it's weird looking. Gave it back. And it was a Les Paul Gold Top, which was just giving out as a junk loaner guitar at the time. This was before the blues guys of the 60s. And, it was pretty amazing. Those go for, thousands and thousands of dollars now. And they just gave them out as, loaner guitars.
That's funny. Roland asked if you're familiar with Richard Green, the violinist.
Yeah, sure. I played with his brother, and I played with Richard. I used to book stuff for Rod Stewart and Page and Plant, and Richard. I got Richard in the string section for that. Yeah, no, Richard's that Sea Wind was a very, he really took bluegrass to another place. I'm also a big fan of Emmylou Harris, and the first song I think on her record was Bluebird Wine, and it has great Richard Green fiddle on that.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, no, he's a great player. And then he became a studio player too. Now he's doing photography. I don't even do that too. He's a really good photographer.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think it's great. Sea Train. Yeah, that's right. Not Sea Wind, Sea Train. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's great that over the last 15 years that strings have gotten a lot more involved in the jazz that's being played around here anyway, in Los Angeles. And I think it's great. I think it's a perfect addition and blend, it's just so beautiful.
Yeah, it's funny. Growing up, I didn't like strings at all. They were I think my mother had Mantovani records or something like that, and it was just totally unhip. But when I liked it, there's nothing like that. In writing for him, that sound, and an orchestral sound or individually sound, the Grappelli type thing too, I became, to really appreciate it and enjoy it. So I playing with it and writing for him. Yeah.
Do you write for TV or movies or that kind of thing?
I did a little bit at one point. It's like, it's been, what is stuck with what is interesting, over a career. It's funny. I was actually talking to Bob about that, the bell curve of a career, of what you originally got into it for, what you've done, who you've played with, what you're doing now, what do you want to do now, and all those different things. Fortunately, the big thing for me was I always wanted to have a creative project, something that, this is my creative project. This is something I'm trying to do the best I can at the time, having a group or whatever it is. But then you have to make a living. So what do you do to make a living? Now, there was different options at the time. You could teach. I taught pretty early on. That was one way. I've been teaching for a long time back then. and you do studio work. I did a lot of studio work when I was young. I was like the rock and roll guy at the end of the Wrecking Crew. You know, I played with Carol Kay and Hal Blaine and Jimmy Gordon, all those guys. I was the kid rock and roll player with some producers who liked me back then. Yeah. And you know, but that just didn't. I just did a session for TV. You know, it was a SpongeBob cartoon type thing, playing Django type stuff. It was really fun, but I messed up my nails and I'm able to record stuff. But you know, it's fun. But at one point, you know, in Cal Arts and stuff like that, and learning to write, I thought it was film stuff. But man, those guys are on such deadlines and pressure, and stuff. You want to see what you want to do with your life, and also the change from trusting composers, meaning that guy would sit down, play a theme on the piano, and the guy say, "Great," you know, and you know, that everything has to be demoed and this, and there's a whole team, and the timelines have gotten shorter and shorter and shorter. So I totally admire all the people who do that. They do the most high level work under the most difficult circumstances and dealing with people. I didn't want to do. It just didn't appeal to me. Yeah. Even though I like music and I like writing, I have done writing for films. I've done commercials and different things like that, and it's good. But it just didn't take to me, and whatever. I didn't have whatever. Couldn't, you know, that just didn't do it. But I like playing live. I like playing guitar. You know, even though I've always had groups, artistic groups, and all that, I wound up doing tons of solo guitar gigs. And I mean, at you know, the Hotel Bel Air, I played for 9 years. I played at the Polo Lounge, you know, Beverly Hills Hotel, Casa del Mar in Santa Monica. I had long gigs at those things. I was working 5-7 times a week for 20, 30 years, you know, when I wasn't doing other things or on the road. So I always had that. And that, you know, and also, you know, the live scene at a certain point in LA was really amazing. I mean, you can make some good money playing live gigs. Yeah. And the type that I did, you know, I was surprised that these great players were on the gigs, you know, because they paid really well. Yeah. And I always, my attitude of them was always that we're playing for ourselves. Let's have fun. Let's play. And if we are, that's going to impart to the people who are listening to you. That's what happened like Saturday. I told you when I did this gig with, you know, Bob Shepard, they'd come up and say, "God, you guys sound so great. And you seem like you're having such a good time playing with each other." That's how I approach it. Some guys didn't. Some guys were, "Don't do this, be real, just this, don't ever play a note that isn't a melody." You know, all the, you know, I did catch that last, you know, putting up the keys with the fingers, the endless medley, you know, kind of the, and that wasn't what I could do, you know.
Yeah.
I mean, so, you know, so that's always been a nice basis. Then I've done other things, you know, I've done major contracting stuff across the country as far as, you know, rock and roll gigs and this and that, and band leading, you know, I've been music director for some big rock and roll things and all that stuff, and they're gigs. But, you know, things like Dream Street, Snap Daddies, Oingo Boingo, the Dream Street, you know, Dr. Jazz. I've always had something like that I said, this is what my artistic stuff goes into more. Not that the other stuff isn't artistic. There's a certain amount of craft involved in all the other.
Yeah. I always talk about this with people. Actually, last night I had a talk about it with a person who books people, and kind of a new booker, right? And I've been booking for years, so you know the good and the bad,
right?
You know, and she was saying, you know, how she couldn't believe that some of the people, well, things like, first of all, didn't even put on Facebook that they were playing. You know, no PR, and therefore had like 4 people in the audience, and then didn't talk to the audience until she called out, "Hey, what's the name of that?" And then they started talking a little. So it's not that I think, you know.
Well, I think it's the difference between Miles and Dizzy.
That's
because I played in Atlantic City when Dizzy was in the lounge. I was playing in the thing with Vicky Carson, and I hung out with him a bunch. What a great guy! But you know, there's a difference. An entertainer, masterful musician. I mean, he would talk about. He could tell you. He knew. You know, he knew.
Yeah.
A great guy. And then there's Miles, who, you know, turned his
Aloof,
back and walked off.
basically, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, it's like but he was the coolest guy in the world. All the beatniks wanted to be Miles, you know.
Yeah.
So there is a different thing, or artiste, I don't have to do that. It's Cab Calloway, you know, but Duke Ellington, I love you madly. He was charming.
Yeah.
That he knew that would help him keep his stuff together. Do you ever see that movie Duke Ellington on the Road? It's a DVD.
I don't think so.
What I was impressed was he gets up in the morning in a hotel room and he has a steak dinner with baked potato and all this stuff. And they ask him, and he says, well, because for the rest of my day, I don't know if I'm ever going to be able to sit down and enjoy a relaxed dinner because I'm doing stuff all day. So he starts out that way. And it's always hot water. Give me some more hot water, baby, you know. But at the end of his concert that night, he's sitting at the piano composing. You know, it's a dark place or, you know, a little spotlight on. He's there at the grand piano. And he's playing, he's doing all this stuff. His valet comes over. It's almost like James Brown in the Cape, you know. He's coming over and he said, Duke, we have to leave now, Duke. You know, and he's kind of, oh, you know, and he did that his whole life. You know, so he kept that together so he could have the guys he wanted to write for and play with, you know, be charming and this and wrote those great songs. But he was writing stuff his whole life. And then this movie kind of showed me that aspect of it. He wasn't
Called Duke Ellington on the Road?
on the road. I think it's On the Road with Duke Ellington. Yeah.
Yeah, interesting. But I better write that down because, you know, the mind is a terrible thing to waste. Okay. Thank you. Dizzy was really great, and he's a Baha'i.
Yeah, he is.
There's a woman who sang with him and was friends with him in Germany now. Her name's Judy Rafat. And she has some great stories about Diz. And Joyce Glasgow said she heard Gato Barbieri play Last Tango in Paris live in a small club, Ratzo's in Chicago in the 70s.
Yeah. Well, he let it out. He had quite a sound, you know.
Yeah. And Roland, I'm not even going to ask him about Zappa. Roland and I have a joke.
Well, I was very influenced by Zappa.
Oh, okay. See, there you go.
I played in my teenage band in junior high school. Bass player, a friend, Jim Jaffe. His cousin was Elliot Ingber. Elliot Ingber was a great guitar player who showed me, he turned me on to the blues and stuff. It was surf music time. Say, here, you listen to B.B. King, listen to Freddie King, you know, opened up a lot of stuff. Well, Elliot he was the original lead guitar player of the Mothers. He's on Freak Out. He's the lead guitar player. So I was hip to it. You know, I was 16, I think, when it came out, 15, 16. And I knew about it through Jim, you know, so I didn't know what I was getting. But I got that record and it was, you know, it was mind-blowing. It was great. But the thing that I really got, you know, on that record, the Freak Out record, there's like 100 or more than 100, like 150 influences on Zappa. And it was guys like Varese and Stravinsky and, you know, a bunch of contemporary composers, beat guys, comedians that just, I checked out a lot of the guys. It really expanded my horizons because I respected him, and it really opened up a lot of things. And also I was friends with this group, The Factory, which became Little Feat, but they were the opening group for the Mothers. And the first time I saw them it was the Guambo. It was the Ground Underground Artists Mass Ball and Orgy, which was the second anniversary of the LA Free Press. And it was the first place the Mothers were going to play after Freak Out came out, and The Factory were opening for them. So that's how I knew about it. And there was like all day, the venue was changing. Oh, they canceled them here and they canceled them there. And so you had to find out where it was. And it was, I forget where it was someplace, but it was just mind blowing because it was all the freaks too around it, you know, meaning all the dancers that accompanied Vito and the Freaks, you know, all that stuff. So that's what I was doing as a teenager, you know, hanging out with all that stuff and getting into classical music. You know, I probably never would have gone into classical music or Cal Arts or that if it wasn't for Zappa, you know.
Wow, Roland, are you impressed? That's pretty cool, actually.
And I played with some of those guys and all that stuff.
Yeah,
and all that. So yeah, it was big influence.
Wow. Let's listen to something. Okay, I got Xander's Dream. That was our family pandemic project.
over the last few months, my wife also choreographs dance pieces. So she got a thing to do on it for the Santa Monica College Dance Company.
I think I saw this one. Yeah. This is a really cool one, right? Yeah.
Well, it's a cool visual. Yeah. So it's so she made it into a film with the dance, she had to, go to people's houses and individually and put it all together. And my son was the technical guy and creative guy and the, helped costuming, all this stuff, costuming, whatever. But they did all that, and they used a song from the Stamp Daddies. So that's what's there.
Okay, cool. Let's do it. Let's do it. Let's do this.
Oh,
that's not it.
That's my requinto. Remember, it's above it's the link first.
That's what I thought I did, but apparently I didn't. Let's see. Well, because it was up here.
Well, maybe I did it wrong. We'll see.
Yeah, see, it's the same.
So I might not have put it there. I could send it to you. If you want to play that, that's, I think it can.
This is pretty. This is a beautiful one.
That's on a requinto. That's that guitar that's tuned up a fourth. It's a little guitar. But I'll send it to you, the other one.
Okay. You can put it in chat if you want.
No, I don't know how to do that.
Oh, okay, just email.
I'll just email it to you. Oops. What do I do?
Nice, beautiful. This reminded me of seeing Eric Clapton and somebody. It was two guitars, and they were playing. I think it was Eric Clapton. They were playing the Eric Clapton song that he wrote for his son. What was that?
Tears in Heaven.
Yeah, and it was just the two of them on acoustic, and it was so beautiful. Because songs like this and the one that you just played, there's something about the simplicity that is so satisfying, and beautiful. Obviously, you loved playing that, and it's just
Randy Newman. Yeah.
Yeah. Nice, very nice.
I did see if you have it in your email. I sent you that.
Okay, good. I'll look at that. My email.
But yeah, I mean, some songs I just try to the challenge is, that has a great orchestral arrangement and all that. Can you reduce it to something that you feel really gets the song across in a simple way that way? You don't try to reharmonize that stuff too much or do any fancy stuff like you would with a standard.
Yeah.
And so, that's what I attempt to do with those.
Yeah. Let's see. I do have it. Shall I play it now?
Sure. It'll pick things up.
Okay.
Well,
I'm waiting for the credits.
they're there. They're there.
Really great musical performance too.
Can't go wrong with those guys. Yeah, Brad's another one who moved out. There's a lot of guys kind of took this time to think about it. I know Pat Kelly just moved up north, and
Yeah.
Brad moved.
Yep, Brad moved. Damn.
Yeah, yeah, really.
Pisses me off, man. Brad, he always says, "Oh, I'll come back for a gig." Yeah, I don't know about a $50 gig. You're not probably going to come back for a $50 gig. But yeah, Brad, I have a group with Gary Fukushima, Brad, Chuck Manning, and Jeff Richmond called The Moment, and it's the kind of group that you could not play for 2 years and then you play and it's the same experience, you know. And we recorded and it's just really fun. Well, Gary, I mean, they're all incredible. Gary Fukushima is probably one of my favorite piano players. And he always laughs when I say that, but it's really true. He is, yeah, I just love his musical universe, you know. And Brad, I've known Brad since
He's got
he
just magic
really
fingers.
crazy, man. Yeah. Remember when Brad, like years and years and years ago, he was like, all that energy was like just really like, you know, and then he, you know, he aged and it all got more focused.
Yeah.
That was a great song and wonderful dancing too. Just great. That was the film, you know.
Yeah, fun. It was keeps people busy. Yeah.
Your wife is a dancer.
She's a bassoonist, contrabassoon.
So,
But
but
she
she's
also does dance, and actually she graduated as an art major. So she's multifaceted.
Oh yeah, very talented person. And you guys kind of look alike.
What, my wife?
Is that you? That was your wife first, right?
No.
Oh.
In the film? No,
Yeah.
no, those were the dancers from Santa Monica College.
Oh, I could have sworn that was your wife because she seemed like kind of the leader of the project somehow.
Yeah, no.
And your wife doesn't look like you.
I don't think so.
Okay.
It looks like our son. I mean, my son is Xander too. Xander Stream.
Oh, I see. Right.
Yeah. He was a kid.
Well, now I know.
She's a New Yorker.
Well, how come she wasn't in the movie?
Well, I think there at the very end. I think there's somebody with a mustache.
Yeah.
You know, that was her. So she does make a cameo, like a Hitchcock.
Oh,
cameo.
I thought that was the first person too. Okay. Well, I'm wrong.
She does look like her.
Oh, you really? Oh.
They kind of look alike, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Okay. All right. So let's see. I already kind of know who your favorite players were when you were coming up, because sometimes I'll ask, what record did you play until you had to replace it?
A bunch, but in different things. I also like Wes Montgomery a lot. He was the first jazz guitar player I really liked. I remember even in my teenage band, I learned, I mean, note for note, but bumping. You know, if it was Wes Montgomery, I'd play it at like Beatle-Litos, you know, the whole thing. And I saw Wes a few times too, live. And the music, the joy. I mean, there was a certain effortlessness about what he was doing, and would just come out, and it's just joy of making music was really got across. So even if it was like, you know, Windy was on the radio or something, at Shelley's Manhole, he was still playing great, you know. Yeah. I think I saw him with the Wynton Kelly Trio right around the time of the Smokin' at the Half Note album, which is his most famous album in a way. But I loved his phrasing, his just fluidity, whatever. Wes was my favorite of those guys. And that was before I was into swing music or Django or any of that stuff. I like Wes Montgomery. And I like all sorts of funk guitar players. You know, Steve Cropper was big, of Tasty and Restrained, with, you know, all the R&B stuff, and Booker T and the MGs. And, you know, well, Dick Dale at the time was the king of the circuit guitar. But I remember I was in the Battle of the Bands at the first teenage fair at the Hollywood Palladium with my teenage band. We were in the parking lot. And surf music, you had to do this tremolo picking, da 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 da, and I remember doing it. You'd see the people are judging on the stage, and my arm just tensed up like crazy, that muscle, and you couldn't. It's one of those things. I just still remember that moment. I couldn't do my tremolo picking, But then I saw Dick Dale and Deltones at the height of their thing. He was the headliner of the show that time, and they were wild. I mean, not wild, but it was the sound. I mean, reverb. You hadn't heard reverb before that. I mean, Jimi Hendrix, I think, has one line: "You'll never hear reverb surf music again," or something like that. Are you experienced or something? But the energy and the sound, it was great.
Yeah.
It's inspiring.
Yeah. What do you think at all about the people coming up? Who do you, well, we talked about a little bit about Julian Lage, but I mean, do you think about other people coming up? Do you think there's good and bad things?
It's always good and bad.
Yeah. Who are, besides Julian, are there any players that you like?
I like Jacob Collier. I mean, he's not a guitar player, but I think he's amazing. Yeah. I think both of those guys have that thing where whatever they can imagine, they can realize.
Yeah.
And they imagine a lot of cool stuff, and they're young, so who knows where they'll go to. Those are kind of two that really stand out to me. But then there's a couple of, I get some stuff from people in Europe and stuff. There's one, what's her name? Hayes. I sent you the thing. The one who plays trombone and sings, and she's Spanish.
I don't think I saw that.
Anyway, they're out in the countryside just making music. It's beautiful. Singing in Portuguese or something, or Spanish. Yeah, there's a lot of stuff all over the world too that you find people.
Yeah.
As far as rock, I mean, I'm encyclopedic. You can drop the needle before 1980, and I can tell you within a second.
Yeah.
After 1980, I really don't know much. I just kind of, at a certain point, I talked to my son about this. There was only one point in probably my late teens, early 20s, when I was really in sync with my generation. As far as what my generation liked, who were the artists that influenced them, and that it was the same stuff that I liked when I was rock and rolling like that. But then it changed. But like Zappa actually kind of ruined all that. I got interested in classical music. I got more interested in jazz, Brazilian music, and odd music, and whatever. Those are the things that attracted me.
Yeah. And
I was never really, connecting with the really popular zeitgeist the way some people do. I know other friends that stayed with that, here's what's popular, and I've got my eyes out to see what the next thing is, and I'm going to adapt to that and do that. And they do that their whole things. And some of them are really good at it, and I respect them for doing it. It just wasn't me. It isn't what I wanted to do at a certain point. So again, as I was saying, we make choices how we're going to support our creative pursuits.
Yeah.
I did. I've got no complaints.
Yeah.
Very fortunate that I've been able to do that. I've also I've had time. I mean, I went to school with Bonnie Raitt, and one thing, the last time, I said, yeah, man, we've managed to avoid having a 9-to-5 gig all these years. I was the main achievement. Accomplishment in itself.
Yeah, definitely. And what about this time, the pandemic time? We spoke a little bit about that before we got on.
I just feel totally fortunate for many reasons. But, as things come in, I mean, you have to adapt. Fortunately, freelancers like we've been, we adapt our whole life. This goes, it ends. Okay, what's next? How do I do it? And you know how to scrounge up different things too. You're kind of streetwise in a way.
Yeah.
Versus people who signed into the corporate things. Okay, they're going to take care of me for the rest of my life, and then they started putting out the pensions and this, and it wasn't a sure thing. And they're chickens in the, deer in the headlights. What do I do now? Yeah. So I was always able to adapt. So it's also looking for the silver lining. So what was the silver lining of this? The silver lining was that doing gigs all the time, it's like, okay, I'm doing this, but I have to leave at 4 o'clock to make this 7 o'clock, whatever it is.
Yeah.
You had to be places. You know, you had gigs, you had disappointments. For a year and a half, I had nothing like that. If I wanted to work on a piece as long as I wanted, 8 hours straight, I could. You know, and that was so valuable. Then also, I've done no social media in my life, you know, really, until this happened. And actually, the way I got into it was, you know, in March, you know, I mean, musicians were the first one to lose all their work, and they will probably be the last ones to get the work back. You know, so it was like one weekend in March. I mean, my wife and I, she plays all the extras and stuff. One weekend, whole year, it's just gone.
Yeah, yeah.
It was amazing. You know, it was really surreal, but it happened.
Yeah, very surreal.
So I, you know, the first thing I do is, I'll clean up my studio a little bit or something like that. So I had a couple of boxes of memorabilia, and I said, oh, this stuff's pretty cool. So I started, you know, scanning and posting some stuff just to my, you know, friends, you know, on Facebook. I had friends on Facebook because I did used to promote, you know, Dream Street gigs and stuff like that, but I never posted as a person, you know, or commented or any of that stuff before this. And it was kind of fun. I'd hear from people, and it was kind of fun to do that. And then I started, well, maybe I've always wanted to document my solo guitar stuff. I never have. Is that me?
Yeah, that's you.
Everything. Oh, well. Sorry about that. I always wanted to document it, but, you know, I was always playing. I never had the time. That's the thing. I never had the time to get around to doing that. Yeah. And that's what I focused on. I was like, okay, I'm by myself and all this. What can I do? I play a solo instrument, you know. And I got into, you know, I got a camera. I got the, you know, all the tech stuff to allow you to film videos with the best sound or whatever. Yeah. And I started doing that, and I recorded like 80 solo guitar videos. Wow. On my started YouTube channel, and made a website that I spent months on to get it up. And I started writing on the website too, which was fun, you know, kind of
writing words,
like memoir stuff. Yeah, words. Yeah. You know, about, you know, how I got into music, this and that. All, you know, just the journey. You know, yeah. I only got up to, then the Beatles were on the Ed Sullivan Show, and everything changed. That's the place I got up to. I didn't get past that. That was enough. But so using that, and the thing is, by recording, you know, obviously you pay attention to things you don't live. One thing I like about live is that you don't have to be exactly precise about buzzes and this and making a mistaken note. So you go for things in a certain way that you might not recording wise, because you want it to be a certain way. But I got much more precise in this and really got into sound. What makes, you know, how do you get a legato sound on guitar? You know, if I keep this finger here, then this note will sustain, which you hear under the microscope of recording, which you don't otherwise. So I think it really improved my playing in that. So, and again, let's look at that. That was my silver lining. And I've enjoyed actually interacting with people. I've met a lot of people all over the world, and some people knew me from my books and different things and stuff. So, you know, I've enjoyed it. So in a way, you know, you were cut off, but I felt I gained a lot of, you know, kind of friends or people I'm interacting with consistently. I've really enjoyed it. So, you know, that was a new thing. You know, again, use what's happening in the best way. That's what I tried to do.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I know. I mean, who do we know who didn't really, you know, kind of luxuriate? I mean, you know, I'm sure there were people. I really don't know too many people myself who kind of freaked out and were having you know, some trouble. Yeah. Just mainly because financially they weren't prepared. But yeah, there's a lot of people, you know, who were, at least they had a home to stay in, and, you know, to keep their, you know, their life, you know, survival going, and really kind of luxuriated in this time. You know, it's like all of a sudden, you know, after you get over the shock, right, that there's nothing on the book, and then after however long that takes you, you know, then you start going, okay, well, wow, I could actually get up and practice. I have nothing else to do that I have to do, you know. And yeah, it's very interesting. At first, for me, for the few months, I didn't practice at all. I don't know why. I guess I was just adjusting to life, you know.
Well, you didn't know how long it was going to go on either, you know.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. Now I'm practicing every day, which my gig yesterday showed me how well that paid off. And now I have to kind of head back into writing too, because I was kind of put composing down. I did finish, I think I finished the last edit of a book that I've been writing for 15 years. The small book, but it's, I mean, God, it just kept sitting in the back of my mind, for 15 years. And I finally think I might have done the last edit. Who knows? Edits, I think, can go on forever, but
it just gets taken away from you. It's never done. You have to turn it in. That's why you need a deadline. Butts with it forever.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's interesting. Well, I see, I have another problem in that I'm self-publishing. So I don't have a due date that I have to give it to a publisher. So that just adds into my normal behavior. I self-do everything. So, I always seem to raise the bar for myself in that way. It's like, okay, now you have to learn how to do that.
Oh, bless you, Cathy.
So what do you have, do you have general plans of what you're doing right now or what you're going to do?
Yeah, I mean, I'm writing a book, it's a solo guitar book. Again, like I do what I'm interested in at the time.
Yeah.
Got in touch with Bill Bay and said, I'm doing all this solo guitar stuff and focus on all these things. Do a book. I'll do it different than what's out there. And I'm really enjoying it, and I'm getting better by doing the book, so.
Yeah. How long does it take you to do a book?
It depends. Some of them were like transcription books, like the Django and Charlie Christian. I just transcribed tons of their music and then analyzed it, showed what was going on. A little bit of writing, but mainly music. Yeah, it was 6 months to a year, something like that.
Yeah.
But it's spread out. It's not like consistent because other things come up.
Yeah.
I got contacted by the Library of Congress to write an article on Benny Goodman's 1938 Carnegie Hall concert, which was the first jazz concert at Carnegie Hall. It was the integrated concert with, Teddy Wilson and Lionel Hampton being in the small groups. It was a very influential concert. Well, Library of Congress has like 500 recordings, and that's one of them that are their special recordings. And they're doing a new reissue or something. They want a new article. So after I finish the book, I'm going to write that.
Now, I just have to ask, are you well known for that, or why did they contact
Well, I wrote a Benny Goodman book too. I did the first 3 books I did was Django Reinhardt, Charlie Christian, and Benny Goodman.
Oh.
Transcribed clarinet solos and stuff like that because I like.
And that's how they kind of got on?
I think so. That or, swing music world, gypsy jazz world.
Oh, yeah.
Music.
Yeah. Interesting.
I don't know, really. I didn't actually ask him, how did you contact? I imagine it was something like that.
Yeah.
But through the books or something.
Well, that's kind of, I think that's an honor, isn't it?
Yeah, I think it's cool. And I'm interested in it. I'll do it. I like doing that.
So that may take a little bit of time, right?
Well, you have to research. I just ordered the complete concert so I can hear everything. But that's where Sing 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 came from. The one whenever they they want to get the atmosphere of the 30s, 40s, they always do Sing Sing Sing. Da 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 da. The tom toms. That's where it was for. That's the big recording of it. That recording where Benny Goodman stops and Jeff Stacey keeps going on and plays this solo that he never played in his life before. I mean, there's some, special things about that concert.
Yeah.
But, workshops and doing guitar stuff.
Yeah.
I am playing gigs. I'm playing solo guitar gigs and stuff like that. But fortunately, I can take the ones I want to do at this point in my life. And I don't really have to do the ones I don't, which is a real luxury. I think because, I also write songwriting and stuff, but that's something I wasn't interested in doing this period. Was not in a composing space as much. I like more arranging during this time, would just fit better. Yeah. But, it always depends on the singer. If I get hooked up with singers that I get inspired by, then I do a whole thing around the singer, put a band, put a whatever. And I'm sure I might do it again. It's a lot of work. I've done it a lot of time, and I've been the band leader all the time. To get like 7 busy guys in the same place to do a rehearsal or again to do a rehearsal, whatever, even if they're great guys, the stuff I do it was a group. I've always liked being in something that you're proud of, that when you perform this, it's going to be good. Come see it. I can stand behind it. It's good.
Yeah.
And but it takes a lot to get that feeling. You want to, as a leader, you want to make sure there's no loose things of that. And you'd have, some people couldn't do gigs, and you have to break new players in and do special things with them or get together. I mean, at some point, the last gig I did, Dream Street, Bobby and I had like a bunch of different things. I'd go to each person's house and individually rehearse with them, and then we'd have everybody together. Or I used to have just the ensemble section without the rhythm guys, because the rhythm guys didn't need to rehearse. It was like Brian Kilgore. It was great.
Yeah.
But so I might, there's a lot of things I might do. Let's put it that way.
Yeah.
I'm not sure. Right now, I'm doing this guitar stuff and enjoying the solo guitar stuff and doing the book and playing. That's enough for right now.
That's an awful lot, actually.
Yeah.
I mean, gosh.
The group thing is a lot of work, which I've always enjoyed, and I probably will again, because I enjoy playing with these great musicians. But I have to, it's not the time to do it now.
Yeah. Well, let's see. I'm thinking in the back of my mind. You're a very good talker.
Yeah, but I'm actually a real monk. That's another thing that suited me. Even though I like being social and conversing, I like my own company. I like. I could.
Well, maybe that's why
I'm fine as a monk too. So
maybe that's why you talk well. Because you're a monk a lot.
You let it go in.
Yeah. Yeah. If you had to. You've already said this during this conversation, but if you had to tell younger, less experienced players coming up, if you had to tell them something that was, well, I won't lead you exactly, but if you had to tell them something about, what to think or how to think, or maybe how to think of the future or the past, what would you say to them?
Are you referring to not musical things, but just being a musician in this day and age?
Well, yeah, yes.
It's hard to be encouraging, frankly.
Yeah.
It really is. It has to be something you really have to do, that you really do. Only do it if you love it. Only do if you love it and you're willing to put the time in, and that you get the enjoyment from it, and that you want to hold on to that and not have it just be a gig. There's a lot of great musicians that are not into music anymore, unfortunately, but just a gig. And then there's others who are still just love it, and I consider myself, it's that the thing that always interested me most is this journey of learning things. I know every day I can learn something. Every year I'm better than I was the year before.
Yeah.
That's worthwhile, and you can make it work. It's just there's so many ways we used to make money that don't exist anymore. I mean, the pit orchestras and Broadway shows are so small now. That used to be a place to do. There used to be all the commercials, but then they started, using 60s rock songs instead of having, original stuff or whatever for commercials. That was like kind of Chicago and New York. That's how they used to support themselves a lot.
Yeah.
There's the session scene. Session scene's gone pretty much, for most people. There's a few people who still do that. So there's all sorts of, and then, even in the casual world, the DJs just blew all sorts of stuff away. Fortunately.
Did they?
Oh, yeah.
Oh.
I mean, when the DJs came in, who's going to?
I thought you meant the DJs were failing too. I think the DJs. No, the DJs
became the huge thing.
They're making crap loads of money too.
I know, which, explain that to me, But so in other words, when you talk about encouragement, you can't say that there's all these different venues. I mean, teaching is still there, but university positions are really tough. I mean, my wife teaches at Pepperdine, but those are hard to get. And once you get them, you keep them for a long time, so you can teach in stores. I taught it, and I would probably go back and do it because I really enjoyed actually that one-on-one in-person teach. I taught at a place called Boulevard Music. I don't know if you know it, in Culver City. It's right close to my house. And they have concerts too. They were like McCabe's and all that type of stuff, a store like that. And then it's making it as an artist is a whole different thing. I mean, the thing is, you used to be able to be a lyricist, and that was a career position. But the way you make your money is off of records, stuff, and you don't make money on records anymore. I mean, they're like they're fancy business cards for most people.
Yeah.
And so all these things have dried up. So fortunately, you can't cut back any further than a solo guitar. So I find places to play. I mean, really, you can't get a duo, you can't get a whatever. But I'm a solo guitar. You can't cut back any further if you want live music. And I can handle it. I can play. So it sounds full and good, so, and I enjoy it. Kind of being a guitarist, you don't get hit on the way the others. And I never did the rock and roll casual scene, because also I don't sing. So, I sang Wooly Bully as a kid and sprained my back as I was singing. I said, this is not for me. So, although I did do a musical once with Sam the Sham was in the band.
Really?
So, yes, it's funny. But
Well, so along
so
those
you're telling kids, if you love music, do music, but
yeah.
I don't know it as a career choice. It's tough.
Along those lines, what do you think of schools like Berkeley, who literally have about 7,000 students a year?
I'm mixed. I've got nothing against it, but the players I like didn't learn that way.
Yeah.
I like, Ben Webster, Lester Young, Coleman Hawkins. I can hear a couple of notes and I know who it is.
Yeah.
Whereas, there's 17, there's hundreds of people that sound like Dave Sanborn or Michael Brecker, I can't tell who they are. Or guys going through electric guitar things that you can't really hear their sound, whereas I hear a couple of notes of Wes Montgomery, I know who it is.
Yeah.
I like, if you're talking about jazz, having an individual sound was probably one of the most important things. As an artist, where I don't think that encourages that those schools. You look at Bach and say, okay, no, he didn't do parallel fifths, he didn't do this. I don't think Bach thought of any of these things. It's people hundreds of years later trying to analyze what he's doing, and there's a value in it. I did it all. I learned how to manipulate lines by doing Bach chorales and stuff like that. You get a melody and you write 4-part stuff. It's very good for you. But if the most important thing is getting your individual sound and stuff, and the experience that, there used to be big bands if you were a jazzer. They'd be the leader, and then you'd have 20-year-olds right out of Berkeley or something. Then you could go on the road with Woody Herman or the trumpet guy, any of those guys. There was a place to get seasoned.
Yeah.
Clubs, there was more clubs you could play. Now, where do you play? When you're at that point when you have to do it. We've had a few places, but all the guys who are major artists are going for those little gigs. So how are you going to get them? It's tough. So I don't want to be discouraging, but on the other hand, I don't want to give bad information. I think a lot of those places are taking money on hopes. What, you're going to be a studio musician by going through the program?
I guess the best thing that you can say for those people who won't get direct music jobs is that it builds you in a particular way, studying music and getting a control of a creative manifestation, like playing guitar or whatever. It builds you in a different way, which is why we want money for the broad general public as they're coming up for music programs, because it builds part of your character.
Absolutely.
But that's what I've thought. That's the best case scenario,
I was because I've walked a lot. That was my main exercise during this time, and there was this guy working on his car in an open garage or something, and I heard this cool jazz music coming out of it. So I stopped, started talking to him. And it was amazing how he had no idea that jazz musicians could be smart, that they could be but he also, do they make a good living? I've been talking about the really good guys. I said, well, I can't really say they do, and he was really surprised by that, people don't really know. But yes, the value of musicians, of what it goes to do it and to get there. Musicians do well in other fields, I think. If they take what they've learned and the skill set that you have from that, you can do really well in other things too.
Yeah.
But then there's some that burn their, that are just you just know they're great and they're going to find their way. Of Julian or some of those younger guys, they're just so good. That the cream will rise to the top
Yeah.
in that way, I think.
Yes.
Because people that know will help them.
Yes.
And they're not particularly YouTube sensations, although Jacob Collier was kind of a YouTube sensation.
Yeah.
And then
Yeah.
Quincy Jones picked him up,
Yeah.
So, but Quincy Jones saw something there that was undeniable. I guess that's what it is. So
Yeah.
there's always going to be a few people like that, and thank goodness there are. It gives you hope.
Yeah.
Future that there are people like that. I'm sure there's a bunch that I don't know that are doing stuff that just has not, reached accessibility now, but hopefully they will.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you can.
Like I say, at this point, I'm enjoying what I'm doing. I'm still enjoying music. That's it. I'm a composer, so it's like trying to compose my life that, it keeps getting better. I can't complain. I really can't. So, but when the original question was, what would you tell young people? I almost don't want that discussion right now. It's hard to be real positive.
Well, I think you said it perfectly. Do what you love.
Yeah.
If you love
And
this,
it's great if you love it, because it's totally fulfilling.
yeah, if you're doing it, I mean, and this was way before the pandemic. I used to hear from teachers, if they would check, do you love this? Well, why are you doing it if you don't love it? And if you think you're going to make money and that's why you're doing it, you probably.
Well, it used to be girls and and stuff when I was, rock.
That was even
rock and roll.
earlier, yeah.
That was rock and roll.
Yeah.
And it really wasn't. It was the music for me from the beginning.
Yeah.
I mean, not that I didn't like all those other aspects.
Yeah. Yeah.
But some people didn't get into it for the music. They got into it because they thought they'd get on the money. But it was also the thing, we'd play. It was like, there's like poker night or something like that. It was my best friends I played in bands with, and that we were, it's like being a gang.
Yeah.
Have a band.
Yeah.
And so that was, that was great. But we didn't do it thinking, okay, in 2 weeks we're going on Star Search or or whatever it was, one of those shows. And I think a lot of kids got into it and think they're going to move right to that.
Yeah.
That's not the reason to get into it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Also, I mean, the other thing that's hard is that, as you said, you have to do everything yourself. All right. Well, kids today, I mean, there's a couple of things, at least in LA, growing up in LA. I was fortunate that I was able to get a guest house, a house behind a house, or I had a loft in Venice across from the Merchant of Venice, $150 a month, whatever. I could teach a little bit and pay my nut. I didn't have huge expenses. Nowadays, just to have an apartment, whatever, you have to do so many things just to do that. And not only that, you have to have a social presence on the social media. You have to keep up your Instagram, your this, your that,
Yeah.
And that takes away. I say, where do you get a chance to work on your art? It really takes time away from that. And that's the thing that I had growing up. I could work on my stuff to get better. And that's a lot harder nowadays. So those that do, I give it to them for being able to do that.
Yeah. Stan, it's been 2 hours.
we could go on.
I know. It's amazing, isn't it? People,
we have to talk for 2 hours. What are we going to do?
Yeah, I can read it. Some people go, gee, I don't think I can talk more than an hour. I'm like, that's fine. But usually when the hour comes, it's like, anyway, thank you so much for giving us your time. It's really gracious of you. Thank you.
Well, as somebody who, I've always appreciated the way you promote music, do music, create opportunities for people and yourself and all that, but for other people too, and it's we need people like you to do that. It helps the whole thing. So I see gratitude. I have gratitude for what you've done. What you're doing. Keep it up.
Oh, thank you, Stan. Thanks so much. It's been a really nice hang.
Thank you. Thanks for me.
I know that some people on here are going to buy Stan's CDs because they recognize good music and that's what they do, which is nice.
We need those people who recognize good music.
I know, don't we?
It's really fun for us to play it.
Exactly. So thank you again. And tomorrow I have on, so Monday through Wednesday I'm doing live now, and then Thursday through Sunday I do archived. But tomorrow, I don't know if you know him, and I think he's an Angelino too. Jonathan Widron. He's a writer, a reviewer. He's written for the jazz scene, but he's also writes for people's CDs and reviews that way. He's a really good writer, and he's a good talker. And yeah, so I'm having him on tomorrow. And then the next day, I wonder if you know Henry Robinette.
Henry Robinette? No, I don't.
He's a guitarist.
Okay.
And up the coast, and he's really beautiful player, beautiful creativity, really, really nice. I think you'd enjoy him a lot, Henry Robinette. So
that's like New Orleans.
I have. Ooh,
have you been to New Orleans?
Oh, I've been to there, but I've interviewed several guitar players from New Orleans.
I love New Orleans.
Let's see, one was Brian. Roland and Dan, you remember the names, but remember that guy who was kind of like a big, huge fan of Ted Green's, and he was like, he'd gone away from New Orleans very briefly and then basically lived there all his life. Great guitar player, really, I can't remember his name because I didn't know him before, and but I've been meaning to call him again just to say hi because he was really fun to talk to, and great guitar player. So I have interviewed several people from New Orleans, which is really nice. Lagreen, that's kind of close. Brian Seeger is one. Brian Seeger and Lagreen, I don't think, yeah, something like that, but that Lagren, yeah.
Well, you're going to do Borelli Lagren now.
I'll have to send you that name because
Sure.
I think you'd enjoy him a lot. He's very unique. But anyway, quickly, Thursday through Sunday, Dave Tull on Thursday.
Dave, that's a good writer.
Great drummer, great composer, great singer. He's kind of, it's triple threat.
Just want to get paid.
It's one of his best songs. And then Friday, John Beasley, great pianist, composer, arranger, music director. Saturday, Robert Kyle, talking about Brazilian music, sax player who's in love with Brazilian music. And Sunday, Eve Evans. Remember her? Mm-hmm. Great pianist, singer who worked her ass off for years and years and years. Really good. So that's the rest of the week. And and I even have a gig for those of you in LA and for those jamming people who like to come to a jam session. Saturday, the Conference Room, which is a really nice outdoor venue in Playa Vista. Good food. The band is really good. So I usually do a setup first and then open it up for jamming people. So it's really nice. It's great. And just go on my site if you want directions and information. So thanks again, Stan.
You're welcome, Cathy.
I want you to go to work when we get off.
All righty. It's not work, That's what's great about it. We play. I play music.
Okay, I want you to go to play.
I will.
Thanks, Dan. Have a great day.
You too.
Bye, everybody.